Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of Energy Unleashed podcast with Suzanne and Kim. Hey
Yeah,
there.
another podcast. What
Yeah,
do
well,
you got for me today?
I wanted to do an update on something, Kim, because things are so different even within, as a practitioner, the energy is so completely different within even the last year from a practice side, much less as a human side, what we're navigating. But I think something has really come to mind for me when I'm working with people that our soul contracts are kind of changing. The way that soul contracts are or were are different. How they were in the past was really more aligned. I'm just going to summarize it for maybe someone that doesn't know what a soul contract is, and then we'll unleash
That'd be
this. Okay.
good.
So basically, in between lives, if we choose to even believe this, take what resonates. In between lives, we basically, in that space of the God source, whatever you want to label that as, we get together with what we would call our benevolence, our guides, and we determine what our purpose is for coming into this incarnation. What are the lessons I maybe didn't finish in other lifetimes? What is it that I would like to do for myself as an individual or the collective? And on it goes. And basically, the way that I teach it in the past is it's kind of like a corporate boardroom where all these entity energies come in and there's no time. So remember, we're picking our parents, our grandparents, our great grandparents. We're picking our kids, our grandkids, our great grandkids. We're picking our loved ones and our enemies. We're picking anything that has really a impact, profound impact on the way that we experience and co-create our lives. And those beings come into that so-called space, and we are the ones in charge of saying, well, you align with my mission and you don't, so I'll take you, but not you, and etc. So I mean, that's kind of, and remember, we're doing a co-contractual. So if I'm in here picking my parent is in here picking me as a child. So a lot of maybe karmic return was happening in that time period when we did it that way. So let's use a sad and scary example. If my family lineage had lots of sexual abuse per se, and if that I was coming into this lifetime to find empowerment in my sexuality or my body space or whatever, I would be in charge of that soul contract choice on who I'm going to have affect me for that lesson, meaning maybe I pick my father as the abuser. Additionally, and co-creatively, is my father's boardroom where he, for whatever reason, is understanding the horrors of doing that to someone, and I'm on the other side of the table. So that's kind of how that works. Okay.
Yep. Hmm.
That's a really fast slam dunk, but I believe we have another one archived on soul contracts. But anyway, why I wanted to bring this up is I am finding so many people and practitioners, by the way, that are becoming very adept at clearing what we would call karma and
Hmm.
clearing what we would call DNA and soul lineage. And I think this is affecting how soul contracts work. And again, this is my perspective, take it or leave it. There's no validation of this anywhere because but what I'm seeing is that this way that the energy is holding right now, that the old, well, I do know this for a fact, the old pattern of karma just doesn't work. You're the bad guy, you hurt me, I hurt you, you hurt me, I hurt you. That kind of bull crap doesn't happen anymore. We don't come back with lifetimes after lifetimes switching places. You're the mom, I'm the kid, I'm the kid, you're the mom. That doesn't, it just isn't happening
But
anymore
when did
because
that changed not that long ago
oh
though, right?
gosh, since probably the 2012 shift and a couple years
Yeah.
after into that. So probably
Okay.
more like that 2019, 2020-ish period, even in that time period. The energies just don't hold that crap anymore because it was garbage. It was a loop pattern in a negative way to keep us in a kind of like enslaved karmic loop. And we never got to evolve our souls and we didn't get to evolve our actual incarnations here on planet. So that crappy loop pattern of karma is gone.
Mhm.
With that, additionally, we are being made privy to so many other dimensional frequencies now with solar flares, Schumann resonance, melding of timelines, etc., that the human themselves, if they're doing really good soul spiritual work, is able to go into not only their biology line of DNA, but even into their soul pods sometimes to release karma, to release contracts, to release debt. And I think this is unbelievably healing. So, what that means is if I am coming from a family lineage line of sexual abuse and I sign up for that in this lifetime, but I override that and overcome it in love, self love, and love for others, I can offer that up to the ethers or the Akash or the God source to affect the entire lineage line of my biology to no longer carry that debt as well. Now, that isn't forced, they get to choose. So, what that means is if grandma comes back or my kid comes back in an incarnation, I no longer also have to have that karmic debt. Okay.
Right.
So, this is called lineage healing. So now we have no more loop pattern. We have lineage healing, we have soul pod healing, and DNA healing. These are really, to me, affecting what I'm seeing on a client base, meaning I have people coming in here going, well, I already learned my lesson and I'm still here on planet, right? I've learned self-love. I've come through that contract. So, what does that mean for my gaslighter husband that I was courageous enough to leave? Do I no longer have any debt to his soul contract when we're both still alive here on planet?
If you've healed the lineage piece of,
If I've healed myself and
yeah,
offered it to my lineage,
yep,
what about the contract I have with the gaslighter husband?
that has to impact him as much as it does her. But
Yeah,
he would still have work to do on himself, though.
on himself. But
Okay.
I was not able to even release a contract until I was in between lives, like logistically. We have to think very logically and logistically when we talk like this, even though energy doesn't really work that
I
way.
know. I wish it was all logical.
Right? So if I've already done my check off my boxes on my contract, but I have a gaslighter husband over here who I obviously contracted with,
Mhm.
but I also learned my lesson with him and removed myself, is there any contract left here at all between us?
Well, I think there's a contract, but you've changed what the contract trajectory is, right? Like you're stepping out of that, like you still have that connection
Yeah.
in that contract, but you no longer have that like commitment, or I don't know how to say that with that person is what I guess.
Yeah, and I think that this can vary, and this is why this is kind of a weird subject. I just thought we'd throw it out here and kind of kick it around and, like we say, unleash it a little because there is no answer to this right now. We don't know. This is new.
Mm.
And so if I have not died and I am completing my side of the contract, and you have not died and you have not re completed your side, I have no reason to be indebted in this contract in any way, shape, or form. So I have the ability, if I choose to, and we do this emotionally, spiritually, mentally, physically, all of the above or a variation thereof, by releasing that. I can do a prayer, I can do a ritual, I can literally intentionally say, you no longer affect me in any way, shape, or form. I release myself from this contract.
Oh, okay. So then that it just puts an end and terminates the contract with that individual, and you move on for whatever your purpose or whatever is left in your contract.
And it clears the way for me to find even more possibilities within my contract because sometimes when I'm contracted, and even if that contract is kind of yucky and broken and not very healthy, I'm still kind of, my intentional energy lines are still here. And
Right.
I believe right now, the more work I do, if I'm really self-sufficient in doing my work in truth, but it has to be in truth. I
Mhm.
can't still be like, to my contract to him. I can't still be like, you're an ass and rah, rah, and I'm glad I left you. That is not healing. Healing is 100% understanding that you have the right to still live the way that you want to live, and I have no power over that, and it doesn't have any power over me. That's a clear cut. So if
Mhm.
I clearly cut my contract, I think what that does and clear all my cords and really do self-healing and self-growth, I change my vibration when I'm still in human form, which opens me up to attracting possibly another whole soul contract that may or may not have been in my boardroom in the first place.
Gosh, I would think it would have to be in your boardroom. It doesn't have
Yeah.
to be,
Or does it? Because
does it?
now are we clearing so much on my soul pod and my everything pod that basically this is when it comes really convoluted in our heads and kind of goes, "Oh."
Yeah,
If I'm getting to a frequency where I'm really, really understanding my soul, literally someone I meet can be a soul fractal of me. So
great.
do I have to have a contract?
No, not
Right? I mean,
not with a fractal, do you? Like,
I
yeah.
don't think so, but I don't know. These are questions that I think I would love to throw out, and I would love for to the first time to get a barrage of comments underneath on what people think because this is really out there thinking that hasn't been here before. We have not, we are being able to release and dissolve soul contracts in human form. We didn't
Mhm.
do that before. This wasn't like, and it is a birthright, I believe, but we haven't been offered that or had the knowledge of that. Actually, we haven't had the ability energetically to do that.
And is it um because we're an experiment and they didn't know how certain, like when we are now, the veils are getting thinner, we're using more of our like abilities, telepathic, whatever that might be, opening our hearts more, like all of that together, where you're healing yourself and moving into different frequencies. Do they just not know how that was going to impact some of those contracts or?
And now someone listening is like, who's the they she's talking about,
Yeah,
right? Because
exactly.
who is the they? The they is technically higher versions of ourselves and higher versions of ourselves. Well, when it finally gets to the aspects of God itself and then God itself. So we have, like you said, been a grand experiment. And there are oftentimes my guides say, we don't know because we haven't done this before.
Yeah.
There are new things that are happening that aren't the same because it didn't get to happen that way before energetically, and now it's happening. And I can't imagine that there isn't pieces of aspects that are going, that's kind of interesting. They're co-creating that as they speak. It's like we're learning as we go.
Oh, but that is a key thing that you just said that I didn't think about co-creating.
Yes.
So we are able to co-create what we are seeking or what we want. So that's a whole different perspective then that could take you out of your, which we can make choices all the time that aren't true to necessarily our contract.
And can we pull in new contracts? Because I did so-called finish my check my boxes list, and
Yeah.
now I have, 30 healthy years or 16 healthy years or 2 healthy years left. Do I pull something in because I'm a creator? And I think that that's fascinating because maybe we didn't have that advantage in between lives because it wasn't even accessible to us.
No, because we were on the loop,
Right,
continuing that loop. We never got out of the loop
right.
to know what our capabilities were.
So, and there isn't a right or a wrong answer to any of this. I just wanted to throw this out for people to really expand their own minds and their own hearts and their own concepts of that we are fractalizations of the same source. Do I have to contract with myself when I'm a fractal of myself? Well, we're all fractals of ourselves and we're all fractals of each other. So in the past, yes, we were contracting. It was very clear. Now
Well,
it's getting more obscure,
if
right?
you say you check the boxes and now I thought you left Earth basically because you
Oh,
checked,
no, no,
you
no,
did
no.
all your
Sorry.
work.
Yeah, yeah.
No, meaning like this is so interesting to me because if you've done the healing, you did what you came here to do, and um, it's so interesting that now you have this whole nother purpose
hmm
to co-create and do what you want. I just think
So
it's so crazy.
when we co-create another whole version, we just recently recorded one of, these a client of mine who had a lifestyle of a hetero lifestyle and then went into a gay lifestyle after that, halfway through her so-called years. Is that originally contracted? In my initial response, yes. Okay. But is there parts of the contract that I let go of and move into new contractual things for myself when I do more self-healing because I'm the one that's left because now this gay partner of mine left the planet. And now I am responsible for cleaning up my garbage from the heterosexual marriage, right?
Oh yeah.
Well, if I clean that up, I clean up myself with this partner that I just now lost, my gay partner. So now all of these things are cleaned up. Those are my contracts when I come in. Is there an ability for me to co-create something completely new and engage in more co-creations of new contracts? I don't know.
Mm.
Or was that always from the beginning? So again, we were not privy to the self ability to open our hearts to the spaces that it was even 10 years ago, much less in original time, right?
Yeah.
So it's difficult for us to know if this is a thing or not. Soul contracts are going to be something to keep an eye on as a practitioner or as a person who's doing their spiritual work to this extent, is understanding, are these changing? And I don't want anyone to think that this is limiting. It actually is, it's freeing,
Green.
right? It's
Yeah.
expanding. And I
Right.
think it's a beautiful concept when we do lineage line clearing. Now, I believe also what's happening is, and this is even more difficult, is some people are doing clearing on such massive levels that they may or may not even be aware of, that they are clearing species, they're clearing
Mm.
planets, they are clearing, gigantic timelines, they're they maybe were created in a time period when something happened, but that wasn't even what they're clearing. They're clearing the magnitude of this. So it's getting bigger and bigger and bigger to put all of the, oftentimes I use a Jenga. If the Jenga pieces were all out and our creational reality and everything was a wobble, and not good. Now we're putting all the pieces back in. So now I'm in charge of going, well, I'd like this one even stronger. I'm going to put in a really rebar piece into this. We're creating strength in our holographic structure. We're creating strength in our creational reality by being more self-responsible.
Which is making it harder and harder for the negative agenda to do what they were continuing to do and
That's a great
implement it,
insight.
right?
Yep.
Yeah,
So they can't
that's
get in there.
really, God, that's so fast. I'm excited because,
It's
uh,
an interesting concept, isn't it? And again, I have no idea. It's just these things drop in my head from my guidance for me to start to look into and to ponder. And I'm bringing this out fairly early in the process because I want others to think about it and engage in this conversation. And I encourage and invite other practitioners to watch and assess their own client base as well. And those that do their own spiritual work, watch this stuff and ask your higher self the questions because we don't have all the answers because we're just making the script now.
right.
So it's kind of amazingly cool to think about. And, I indeed watch and learn from my client base and my own work, but my client base mostly to find consistencies. And this kind of a feeling and conversation has been very prevalent lately. That usually tells me that there's a wave of something that's either changing or shifting or coming into fruition. It's like a monitoring system, having a
Well, I
client
feel
base.
like this, like hearing this and going through this with you, it's empowering
Yes,
because when you think about contracts and how it's like, oh, well, I know I'm coming down here to do whatever this is, but to think that you can do your healing, you can keep moving through all of that. And then there's this really cool, freeing, co-creative piece that's waiting out there for you. It's actually like incentive to keep going, through the healing process.
it is. And I'd like to even incentivize it more in the thought process and expand it because we usually think the ascension process is about us right here in the planet. Oh, we're ascending, the planet's ascending. What we maybe want to invite ourselves to think about is our soul is actually what is ascending also. So if I'm bringing back less and less garbage in between lives, I'm having faster and quicker opportunities to ascend in between lives.
Yeah, right.
This is where the work is profound because people don't just die and go bowl on rainbows and play with bunnies. I mean, this is work on the other side to ascend the soul and the higher selves and the lineage lines and planetary systems and seed new multiple realities. We're working on the other side, but we have come exhausted as a soul because we've been playing this other game. We come with lots and lots of rehab and homework to do, so we don't get to jumpstart. And I will never forget a hospice patient I wrote about in my Healer's Book of Dying. Um, Robert is his name. I think I said Roger in the book, but whatever. Robert was his name, and he met me in hospice because he had heard about me, and I said, hi, nice to meet you or whatever. And he goes, yeah, yeah, well, you're here to help me get to a level I need to be at before I die. And I'm like, what? What? And he's like, yes. And he said, I need to understand some things very clearly because I'm going to die pretty soon. And I want to cross over exactly where I need to be. There's no time for me to be down here and learn it on the other side.
Oh my gosh, that's so fascinating to me every time you tell this.
Yeah. And so it was so interesting because this is quite a few years ago now that I met Robert, and he was adamant that he was going into work in the gods realm, which is 4D, 4 into 5. And so it is the dimension of those ethers, but the structure of the god realms, the male-female balance is really being restructured. We are reactivating that infrastructure in the hologram. And so I think he did slide right over. So he's always been prominent in my mind to do your stuff now. Why are you wasting time on the other side? You have a really important job to do. Get to work right when you get there, kind of a concept. And I loved that he offered that to me as a really golden nugget.
Oh, it changes the perspective on how all of this works.
Right.
It's really fascinating to me because when you don't do any of this and you're just going through your day-to-day stuff, and then you start to say, what? Soul contracts? I have a purpose?
Yeah.
What is, and when you start to go into all of this, it's so enlightening, you
Hmm.
know,
And
um,
freeing.
and it can be frustrating and it can be, all of the things, but at the end of the day, life is so much better as you're moving through and
Hmm.
healing, what you're here to heal. So, oh,
So again, when we round this down, it's important, like you said, bring it back to being a human now. Bring it back to being a human now with some really good self-reflection. The Vibe Tribe group that we have, you write the prayers for, and I do every month. The Vibe Tribe membership did a really powerful death card was the month, the concept, the idea, and I did a really powerful meditation of bringing you through your own death
mm,
and really feeling what it felt like to allow your body to surrender to death. And throughout the meditation, my words were saying things like, is there anything you regret? Is there unfinished business? And I did my own meditation, which is very rare because it's weird to hear myself, but I did that meditation and I loved the idea that my list of regrets was not terribly long. I do a lot of work to atone for whatever my contract feels like it came in to do and let go of what I did that it didn't have to do with, etc. So I think it's really something that is a beautiful gift to yourself to ponder what do I have left on this contract? And it's pretty obvious what they are, people, because it's usually the shit that drives you the most nuts. It's the stuff where you bang your head against the wall. It's the stuff that is consistently driving you crazy and shows up in every sandbox in your life. Whether it's abandonment, whether it's betrayal, whether it's about self-love and worth. I mean, it is always consistent in every sandbox. So you don't have to work real hard to find out what the boxes are, right? I
right.
mean, it's pretty
And you're
obvious.
going to work on it multiple times. So,
Yep.
yeah.
Good point. Thank you for adding that in.
Mhm.
Multiple layers, multiple levels. And you just really hit on it again, Kim, and that I want to summarize the reason why you're working on it again and again we're becoming more profound healers. We as humans are becoming more accessible to all of these layers that are larger and larger, and we are indeed moving toward and into the law of one, which is the only universal law there is, and then everything breaks down from there. But the universal law of one is that we're all one. We're all that God source, right? And we have not been able to own that because dogma got in the way, and then everything fractaled out of that into patriarchy, blah, blah. But when we get rid of all that crap and that garbage and we take away the fear, we're like, well, I'm not going to want to kill my neighbor because, like, it's me. What are we thinking? And this starts to change everything in those contracts. And so I think contracts are profoundly going, what are we doing now? And we're creating it. Isn't that cool?
Yeah, it's so much opportunity. I love that. Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And it's funny because as I'm even sitting, my head is talking to me as we're talking. It's interesting to even think there's contracts in really bigger ways. Are there planetary contracts? Yes.
absolutely.
Are there turf wars right now that are going on in our world?
Mhm.
Those are contractual on a different level. Let's start getting involved and thinking about how we can be co-creators when we want to go steal somebody's land or blow it up to get it. I mean, these are things that are really, really things that we can do through prayer and quiet time and meditative time to sit and think that not only does a human have a soul contract, we have them with our animals, we have them with our nature, we have them with everything. And the Akashic and the records that are created are everywhere. So this is a big deal and it's changing quite rapidly.
Oh,
So,
yeah. Yeah. I
sit
think
with
globally, there's just so much happening, and you just know that things are changing in a really, it keeps getting faster and faster.
And it doesn't have to be scarier and scarier either. I was with somebody the other day that is so frightened about everything, and I kept scratching my head, going, "God, am I even on the same planet as this person? I don't know. I don't think any of those things, and it doesn't mean I'm right and they're wrong or anything. It's just not the same timeline, right? Not the same
Right.
reality, which
Yeah.
is fine, but it was confusing. So these are going to be some really interesting times of blowing things up and reconstruction. And I really believe the soul contract is part of that process. So I encourage people to think about it, let your brain go down some rabbit holes if there are any on this. And, seriously, I would really invite you to leave some comments so that we can dovetail off of this and go deeper and unleash more if we need to, right?
Yeah, it's such a, there's so much more and more that we can talk about around soul contracts. So I think
Pretty
this is
cool.
awesome. I love the
Uh,
update.
Good. All right. Well, until next, everybody, take what resonates, maybe share, hit the subscribe button. That will help our numbers. We would really appreciate that. Until next time, Cosmic Hugs.
Goodbye.